Sometimes your life changes in an instant, and everything you thought you'd be doing forever is suddenly gone. That's exactly what happened to Daniel Eisenberg. A chiropractor with a thriving practice, Daniel's career came to a crashing halt when he was literally hit by a bus. What followed was 5 years of brutal recovery, soul searching, and ultimately reinvention. In today's episode of Second Chapter Careers, Daniel shares how he rebuilt not just his body, but his purpose, and how he found his way from spinal care to global currency as an international money changer. This is the story of loss, grit, and the unexpected paths we take when the road ahead disappears. Let's dive right in. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Daniel Eisenberg to the show. He's going to tell us all about his journey, which took quite some unexpected twists and turns. Daniel, welcome. Can you start by giving us a brief background about your educational journey and your anticipated career path?
Sure. So if we have to start, we're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to start in third grade. Because already in third grade, that's when I knew that what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew that I wanted to be a chiropractor. I planned my entire life. I know this sounds crazy, from the time I was in third grade, knowing that that's what I was going to do. What happened was I was in an accident, like slip and falls, we call it in the business. And back then I was in the hospital for about a month. As a child, I was 8 years old. I turned 8 in the hospital. And back then, they would keep kids in the hospital to put them in traction in order to repair a leg fracture. Whereas now, they take a couple Black & Decker screws and they're back at home for dinner. So after this accident, I had a leg length inequality. And my mom took me to a chiropractor to get better. And I would go every once in a while, and just it really connected to me. And I just said, okay, I can do this as a career. I was always interested in science, interested in helping people. And you put the two of them together, and chiropractic is what spoke to me.
I think a lot
So
of
much
people
so
would
that
be
if you look at my
jealous
eighth grade
about
yearbook,
that.
in my eighth grade yearbook, it says very clearly, I'm going to be a chiropractor. And in high school, I was planning to be a chiropractor. I had to make sure I took the science classes. Then in college, I was in a pre-med track at Queens College. I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science. And shortly afterwards, I attended the University of Bridgeport College of Chiropractic. It's a 4-year program after college. There I graduated, I did my clinical services, and I worked for 10 years as a chiropractor. And that was my initial career. Everything was going exactly as I planned from the time I was 8 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. I think so many people would be jealous of that. And it's amazing that you were able to really pull it out and get that done. That's really, really cool. So
Yeah,
what happened
again,
after
that's the
10
type of
years?
person I am, that I look at where I am, I look at where I want to be, I try to draw a straight line to get to where I want to go. And I was also very motivated because this was my career dream. So I knew what I had to do. I took the classes I needed to take. And
Amazing. So what happened after 10 years?
so one morning I was crossing the street, and in New York, a school bus. Hopefully she didn't see me, because it would be much worse if she did. But while I was crossing the street, she went into me and rolled over my legs. And that was pretty much the end of my career as a chiropractor. I was in the hospital, a long recovery. I tried to go back to do some of the administrative side of clinical work. I was working in a very large multi-specialty practice where I was the chiropractor, but I was working together with orthopedists, physical therapists, neurologists, all different types of people that treat injured bodies, let's say. In addition, there was a full medical practice with 15 different specialties and primary care providers. So it was a very large center, and I tried to transition to the administrative side of things. However, just I wasn't able to. I was not able to really walk. I was on a lot of medications. It really just I couldn't do it. And that was really the end of my career in clinical medicine, in the working in the Bronx.
Wow. So That's a lot of trauma to unpack. Tell us for 2 seconds about the recovery process. How long did it take you, and how far into the recovery did you realize that this dream was over?
Probably within 3, 4 months after the accident, I really wasn't able to work in any real capacity between going for physical therapy almost every day because you can't treat the same. There's so much that was involved with the therapy because I would 2 days a week I'd be doing hand therapy, then working with my shoulders, my knees, my back. It was just when you get hit by a bus, a lot can go wrong. Thankfully, not everything went wrong. That I was able to make a recovery, but I wasn't able to balance the medical appointments, the medications that I would take that very much changed my cognitive abilities, just being tired a lot. And then after this time, I developed a neurological chronic pain condition that's still with me. That also, until I was able to effectively manage it, I couldn't even forget about going back to chiropractic, but just any type of productive career. I wasn't even thinking that was beyond the horizon. I was dealing with, how do I pick up my children? How do I go back to being a partner with my wife? Those were the big pictures that I was dealing with at that time.
Wow. And how long did the recovery take? Aside from the fact what you're still recovering, but the biggest part of the recovery, what was the window like there?
Probably about 4 to 5 years, I would say.
Wow.
So for 4 to 5 years during the peak of my productive years, typical of a person's productive years in their 30s, 40s, I was sidelined with a very painful condition, very limited mobility, cognitive impairments, and physical impairments. Not an easy time, and I give all the credit to my wife for sticking it out with me because any sane woman would have left, and because I was not an easy person to be with at that time.
It sounds like you guys are both pretty amazing people because that is really a challenge and it's not what you sign up for sure.
No, for sickness and health, and that's definitely, I'm still surprised that my wife stuck with me, but at the same time, we emerged as better people through this.
So, at what point in that 5 year window did you start thinking, maybe I should look for another career?
So, like towards the end, when I was better able to manage the pain side of my condition, and I was able to change the medications that I was taking to other ways that don't mess with the head as much. So I was trying to think in terms of what can I do now that so much of my career was based on, it's not just physical strength, but what I was doing is very precise movements that take years to learn, takes even a longer time to master. And now I just don't have just the nerves going to my fingers are just not connected the same way. I don't have that same type of control. I would never want to cause harm to somebody, but thinking just I want to be the most effective, helpful person that I can be. And if my fingers aren't working the way they're supposed to, then I'm not the right person to help this person in their recovery. So I was thinking, what else can I do? I was trying to consider the medical legal side because part of what I did before was in America, especially in New York, medicine and legal go hand in hand, especially when you're talking about the personal injury. So people who've been into a car accident, if there's any type of real trauma, real damage, there's going to be litigation that goes with it. And in order to substantiate how much injury there is, what the dollar value should be, I was often, I should say my medical reports were a component in that. And I would often work with attorneys and try to either I was thinking as a consultation basis that patients that I never saw, just to be able to go over the medical charts to help the lawyer either understand it better or how best to advocate for their client in court. So those were all things that I was considering. However, it was difficult because it's not that there's 3, 4 people that are doing this that I could speak with them and learn what they do and copy it. This was something that really didn't exist. And I also at this stage I really wasn't in the right headspace. I would say that I was at the pre-contemplative phase of it. I didn't actually go and fully pursue it. I looked into other things, what I could do. I have a head that's good with numbers, and I understand finance, in a way that I can explain it to people better. But nothing really materialized from that. It wasn't till after that we did a relocation that I found myself with new opportunities, and I was able to run with it.
How long after the accident did you guys relocate?
5 years.
Ah, okay. So in the same period where you were starting to think about it, you moved, and
Right.
that takes a lot out of a couple and a family under the best of circumstances. So
Correct.
how
Correct.
long
But at the
after
same
that
time,
move?
for us, it wasn't that stressful. I'll explain why. Is that when you've been through hell, going on a family road trip is not the end of the world. Meaning, we we went through a lot, and we for so much of the difficulty was not knowing what was on the other side. Not knowing, am I going to be able to walk again? Am I going to be able to, just be the person who I was before? And after emerge on the other side from that, the rest of life is a cakewalk.
Well,
So we know how. So meaning that we know how to deal with stress. We know how to deal with challenges. We know um, I think, in a very healthy way, to deal with it, because this wasn't our first rodeo. It's a
well,
different rodeo. It's different, but we were still saying, okay, this is a situation that is going to require 3 hours of time. So after hour 2, we know not to get frustrated because we know it's going to be another hour. So we come in with our eyes open. And so if it doesn't get done today, it gets done tomorrow. So, we made our priorities, and we were able to roll with the punches. And that part was good. Meaning, and it wasn't until really we were in the thick of things with our relocation that we were able to take a pause and say, hey, do you know what? We can handle this. We know how to deal with stress. We've dealt with stress before. It's different, but the same tools that we use, we can apply here. And that was actually very effective.
well, I wouldn't wish any accident on anyone listening, but it seems like you really took so much out of it that changed you in positive ways. So kudos on that. It's not easy. It's so easy to just become depressed
I did
and
that also, don't
frustrated.
worry. Meaning at some point, after spending so much time lying on the couch and feeling, pity for myself, I just decided, and again, with my family's help, to just, get out from the couch. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to have to hold on to the walls as I try to make it to the bathroom. Okay, but I'm going to go. I'm not going to rely on the cane. I'm not going to rely on the walker and, all the other adaptive and assistive devices. It was putting one foot in front of the other. That's literally what it was. Just making that conscious choice. And again, it's one foot in front of the other. Because any other way, thinking about it in such big pictures, at the end of the day, all I did was think about it for a while, but not actually do anything. But when I actually started pushing myself to go into the discomfort zone, that I believe that I was able to experience the real growth.
I think that's a very good metaphor for everything in life. You're never going to change if you stay in the same place. You have to push yourself, and it does hurt and it is hard, uh, but hopefully rewarding on the other side.
I'm not on the couch anymore. So
So true. So before we get to where you are now, tell us a little bit about, okay, so you relocated. How long after you relocated did you start to look for something new? And what did that process look like?
So our family relocated to Israel. And for those who aren't familiar, we chose to live in a community. And this is important because you're not just living in a place, it's a community. And in a community, you have people that are like-minded that want to help out. And everyone chose to live in this community for pretty much the same reasons. And there's a social feel to it. So I give this as a background because The second Shabbat that we were here, there was a family that had us over. And through the course of the Shabbat meal, we started talking what our backgrounds were, what he was doing, what I was doing. And I was able to see pretty clearly on that there was a need within his company for the skills that I bring to the table. And so we started with the conversation, and it evolved. And probably about 2 weeks later, I started working in a very part-time capacity for a company that deals with foreign currency conversions.
That's quite the huge shift from chiropractoring. Was it scary for you?
It is. It's something that at first the way that I saw my opportunity was I'm a people person. I know how to sit with someone, for them to feel comfortable with me, for me to feel comfortable with them, to develop genuine rapport, and to be able to take that to a next level. So in the foreign currency field that I'm in, basically it's people that need to send over large amounts of money, and dealing with the Israeli banking system is less than pleasurable for most, expensive for everybody. And if I'm able to give them what they need, meaning I'm able to get them the currency at a much better rate than they could get on their own, with the level of service that they're used to from States, from Europe, and I'm able to basically build a better mousetrap. And if you're familiar with the expression, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. That's what I've done here. And we're still dealing with mice, which is unfortunate. We're still dealing with international finance that is complex. There's different locations, have different regulations, how they do things, anti-money laundering, source of funds. I deal with all of that, which is, I call the mice, the parts that's not comfortable. What I try to bring to the picture is the human element. The idea that there's somebody who you can call, you can send a WhatsApp to, that's there, that will listen, that has done this enough times before, that will be your guide through the process. And that's what I've been doing for the past almost 10 years now.
Wow. First of all, I think it's awesome that you were able to pinpoint that skill from chiropractor, that people skill, that wanting to hold people's hands and transfer it to something totally different. I think when you're
It's
in the
me.
thick of
What
things,
I
it's
what
easy
I
to
realize
lose.
is that I'm the same person who in third grade wanted to be the chiropractor. But what drew me to chiropractic was not hearing the clicks and the knocks and that. It was the idea of being able to have a person who's in pain and try to alleviate their pain. So I'm using those same exact characteristics myself when I approach people. I know that that there's certain pain points with certain financial transactions, and I'm able to identify those pain points, and in most cases to, if not totally to eliminate, then to at least make it a better experience.
That's really beautiful and so true. It's very self-aware. I think a lot of people may not be as self-aware. Maybe it was, inborn in you since third grade or previously, or maybe spending all those years on the couch really gave you that opportunity. But either way, I think it's beautiful that you have that knowledge and awareness and skill that you can so easily transfer. Was it
Right.
easy for you to transfer to this field, or was it hard because the field is difficult and frustrating and bureaucratic?
So there definitely is a learning curve, and I started off very part-time. For part of the reason was because I was going to Hebrew learning classes, so that I fully wanted to integrate into the new society that I was moving into. And so I thought it was important for me to be able to grasp the language as best possible, and I thought doing this in a formal classroom setting would be best. So that gave me time to, in my free time, I was able to start on this work, developing contacts and taking meetings. And I did one thing which again, I don't know if this is right for everybody or not, but I banked on myself. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. I had two different ways that I could negotiate my compensation package. One was more of a base salary and a less of a commission draw. And the other was, with a less of a secure salary and more on a commission draw. And I said to myself that, it might take me a while, but I'm going to be able to do this. So what I did is I believed in myself. So I told my friend now who, at that time was just going to be my boss, I said, I'll take a lower salary. I believe that I'm going to be able to do much, much better taking a higher percentage. Might take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I'm not going anywhere. And this has been so much better for me. And it's something, but it's really, it was a leap of faith, but it was a faith in myself and a faith that I'm, with my drive and dedication, I'll make this work. Whatever it takes to make it work, I can make it work. I've been through hell. This is going to be easier.
What do you recommend for people who don't have that self-confidence? Are there any tips or tricks you can provide that would help people feel more confident or secure?
So it's a great question. A person isn't born with confidence. I think it's a muscle, it's a skill. And it's something that if a person doesn't have it intrinsically, then they might not need to work with somebody who can help provide that extrinsic validation and building on small accomplishments. So just because you didn't get from A to Z, that's okay. If you got to A to P, that's still good. And to celebrate the little victories and to use those as step stools to move forward. Just to know that if you beat yourself up, you've already lost.
Yeah.
So, there's enough other people out there that are going to tell you what's wrong with you. You don't need to do that also. You can look in the mirror and celebrate what's right. And, those daily affirmations, they might seem, foolish at the beginning, but as it becomes an activity that later becomes a habit and then becomes a routine, it's incorporated. And for me, at least, that's what's been helpful. So people that aren't feeling that self-confidence, maybe sitting with somebody else, either a friend, a coach, a therapist, whatever it is, to be able to actually write down on a list 5 things that they're really proud of. And then, and then when they meet at their next time, a month later, a week later, whatever, to have a 6th thing to put on that list. So if it might take work to get to that 6th list, so then, so now you have your journey. But to keep on building that list of things that to be proud of yourself for. And when you meet with people, when you incorporate that, it shows and it shines and it attracts people. People want to work with someone who they feel is successful. They want to work with someone who brings a smile to their face, that brings some added value to the world. And if you're going to come in with a frown, oh, nothing is good, you didn't get that parking spot, and everyone has their laundry list of everything that's wrong in the world. I believe that most employers or other people that you interact with in the day, they don't want to hear it. They don't want someone who's going to bring them down also. They're looking for someone who's going to motivate, someone who's going to lift up the spirits. And even on a subconscious level, it's just a much more attractive personality trait.
I'm curious now that you've said that, which I think is very valid, and it's sometimes hard to put it to practice, but it's a really good advice. Do you now manage any people on your team? Because you sound like you'd be a really encouraging boss. I'm curious if you're able to use that in your professional life.
So I do work with people in part of the sales division of the company that I work with, and it doesn't have to be on the org chart in order to motivate people and that. Something just between the collegial atmosphere, now people are going back to work. It's hard to do this over Zoom, but people that are going back to work, it could still be done. It could still be part of the package that a person brings to the office.
Absolutely, but it isn't always. I think that's why a lot of people struggle at work, because there's so much disparaging. It's nice to hear someone who takes such a positive approach to stuff. I wish more people were like that.
No.
What does your day-to-day life look like now in your new job?
So day to day, it's interesting because I'm working with people in 2 different time zones, or I should say multiple time zones. So very often I'll start my day just reviewing my correspondence, people who sent me WhatsApps, emails while I was sleeping, check in with the people in the office on the Israeli side. Often then I'll take a break for a few hours because I'll start working again later in the afternoon and evening when people wake up in the US. So My day consists a lot of speaking with people, either electronically. I always prefer to speak where it could be interactive. And because part of what I'm doing is I'm selling myself and the services. But if I'm able to make a genuine connection with someone, the relationship will, first of all, be able to weather any storms that might come up. But I mean by that on a professional basis, that things happen. A person was expecting the funds to clear on a Monday, but the bank didn't, was only working half day or whatever, and the funds aren't clear yet. So if I have a relationship with them, I'm able to explain to them, they don't think I'm trying to run away with their money. We're able to deal with it. But when you don't have that relationship, then it's missing that. And other information fills in the gaps that could have been there if there was just a simple WhatsApp conversation. So a lot of my day consists of speaking to people. I work with a lot of attorneys here in Israel, real estate brokers. So I'm very engaged socially with people. And then there's also the drudgery, writing expense reports and trip reports. Those are the parts that speak to me less. And I've been very fortunate that with the people that I work with, that for years now, we were able to really hone in on what are my skill sets? What am I really good at? And what are parts that I'm not so good at? And they've been good at getting me the support, either other people that I can work with or technology or other ways of dealing with the parts that are not my skill sets, or it just takes me a lot longer to do it, or it could be something that it doesn't tickle my brain the same way as being able to give a presentation in front of 30 people about what's going on in the foreign currency markets. That tickles my brain. That brings light to my eyes. Writing trip reports don't. It has to get done. So other advice I'd give to people is, try to understand about yourself and your work. What are the parts that tickle your brain? What are the parts that you enjoy doing? What are the parts that you do better than others? And really to have that be the focus of your day. And the other parts, what you need to do what other parts that can be done by others, to have that done by others, even if it means paying for something. But that's where I would allocate my resources, because this way I'm going to be a better salesman. I'm going to be a better everything. And the parts that are, non-revenue driving or however it doesn't speak to me the same way, I make that a lower focus of my day.
I think that's really good advice for all business owners. And a lot of times we get lost in, it's going to cost more, so I'll just do it myself. And then you end up crying because you hate it, or it doesn't come out good, or whatever. That's a good thing
or you're just not as effective at doing the revenue producing activities. So it winds up costing money.
Right. So
true.
true.
Meaning that it's really, I think that when you put everything on the table, there's certain parts in a company that it's hard to put a dollar value on. I understand that, but you should. And you understand that time is a resource. If this is taking up an hour of your time, how much is an hour of your time worth? And then to be allocating resources appropriately. And how much is it worth for you to be able to sleep well at night? How much is it worth not to have a fight with your wife and kids because you're stressed with something from the office? So when you have a more holistic view of time, then people then become, easily it's to spend the money in order to get that time back.
So true. It sounds like your current job is not just mentally different from your last job, but the hours and the time demands are totally different. When you're a chiropractor, you leave the office and everything stays there. But here, you just said you're working in the morning when you wake up, then you're working late at night, you're traveling a lot, which I imagine you did not do very much as a chiropractor. So
Yep.
How has that shift been for you? Is it welcome? Is it challenging?
It's welcome and challenging and exciting and drudgerish. It's everything. It's life. So, for those who don't travel, they see people who do travel as this exotic experience.
Yes.
There are opportunities that definitely come up that, I get to eat at, different restaurants that I wouldn't have, if I was just staying where I am. But a lot of it is being in airports, dealing with flights that are delayed and then missing connections, and it's not the fun. It's a lot of waiting around and pressure and stress, and stress that's non-productive stress. So yeah, I have had a lot of that. That's been a change and a challenge. But I consider myself lucky that I do have these times of my day that are open to me that people who are working in an office wouldn't have. I can easily pick my kids up from school if I want to. I can take off a few hours and go on a hike with them. I have that freedom that someone who is in an office doesn't have. And I try to focus on that. I try to focus on the positive sides of my unique work life.
Yeah.
I'm able to go away and I can work remotely. I've been able to work remotely longer, even before COVID, because so much of my work is socially interactive. So I can have that similar social interactions through phone conversations, Zoom, and Microsoft Teams is where we're holding for most of our meetings. So I've been able to transition between the COVID life and in the office, out of the office, meetings. It all works for me. Yeah, it's different. There's definite stress that there are so many people that are depending on me for their financial transactions. But I roll with the punches. It's something that I really do feel privileged and blessed, only because I saw what the alternative is. And having experienced the alternative, I want to avoid that. And so I'll make what I have work. And when I say make it work, it's not just making it work, that it's done, but making it work in the best way possible so that I'm there for my family, I'm there for my wife, I'm there for my kids, and I'm there for myself. Self-care is so important, and to manage just the stress in the day-to-days.
Sounds like you really nailed that one, and I think it's awesome. I really think it's great. What advice would you give to someone who is looking at this mountain of, oh my God, my path isn't what I thought, or I need to make a change, or even I want to make a change, but I'm scared, or it's hard?
So first and foremost, it's important to acknowledge and even put labels on the feelings that a person is having, not to discount it, because they are there and they are real. At the same time, the way I like to have roadmaps and milestones and lists. And this way, if a person wants to go somewhere, if they don't put in the destination in the Waze, they can drive for hours, but they'll never make it. So the first thing is putting that destination into Waze. Then checking the routes. So first is just identifying where is it that you want to be. And then what are the steps necessary to get there? And working with someone who is objective, who's going to hold you accountable, is so critical, because everybody believes that they can do everything. And then when it doesn't happen, they're experts at explaining all the reasons why it didn't work. But when you're with someone who you're paying to keep you on track and to keep you accountable, the excuses that you told yourself were so brilliant, they say, well, could you have woken up an hour earlier and then you would have done this? Or, did you check the traffic, that made you miss the meeting? Whatever the case is, being accountable is a game changer. And for me, that's very much how I try to keep myself on task.
Very wise. What do you think is the biggest misconception about making a career pivot?
Misconception, I think that it's going to be too hard, or that because it's hard, then not to start. I don't think that, again, you have to know yourself. And to see if it's something that's, for a person in their 50s that they want to start a career in medicine, yeah, that's a challenge. It's not impossible, but it's a very big challenge. If it's a lateral pivot, then maybe that is something that's doable. But break it down to its steps. What are the steps that it would take to do that change? And to map it out. Is this a 3-year commitment? Is it a 6-month going to a boot camp course? Whatever the case may be, but identify what are the steps. And then what are the milestones? If I know that I need to have this coursework completed by June. So that's a hard deadline. So that means that you have to already start working to get in the applications by a certain time, meaning working backwards, but breaking it down into achievable steps. The same thing is with children. If you give a child the end of the year assignment on day one, then they're just lost. There's just a whole list. But if you break it down that the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick the book that we're going to do the book report. We're not, before you get into the composition and the concluding paragraph, you start with the book. Okay, so we know that it normally takes a week to read a book. So we're going to give ourselves 3 weeks. 1 week is what it should take, 2 weeks for all the inevitable delays, distractions that are going to come up. And then we started breaking it down, and that's the key. But it's steps. But the very first thing in terms of person contemplating career change, and using the example of the book report, making sure that the book that is that the kid chooses the right book for them. That's a book that's going to interest them. That's going to sparkle their curiosity, because then you're starting off with motivation. So too, if a person's thinking about a career change, if they're not happy with their current career, why are they happy? And where will they be able to find the joy in their next career? Because then, you don't want to be having the same conversation 10 years later that they're now at their new career and miserable. So finding the joy, the sparkle, the tingling, the parts of the brain that make a person wake up in the morning and that they're, looking forward to the next, 12 hours.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I don't really have any other questions. Anything else you want to add that might inspire people who are going through either a similar challenge or a parallel challenge?
Even when you think you're alone, you're not. Surround yourself with people that are going to raise your spirits, people that are going to share the load. And that, for me, I think is the best advice, is that not to try to do it yourself. And it's not that you can't, but it'll be a lot harder. It's not as efficient. Any way that you can bring it to assemble a team, that would be the best advice that I could give. And also, don't beat yourself up, because when you beat yourself up, you've already lost. There's enough other people who will beat you up. Don't worry. But you have to be your biggest cheerleader. And if it didn't work today, tomorrow's tomorrow.
Sounds like you have done so much work and have such a great team behind you. So I just want to say congratulations on that. And thank you for sharing this amazing story and all of the challenges and the triumphs. I think it's really, really inspiring. And I wish you lots of continued success and to always find that joy every morning.
Thank you. And I'm not done. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I was just actually talking with my wife and trying to think, like, what's the next chapter, going to, the next hobby I'm going to take on, the next area, because I have to wake up tomorrow with the same excitement that I woke up with today. So I'm not going to allow myself to be complacent. And, because, we only get one life. So you make the most out of it. And I haven't met too many, older people thinking, like, oh, I just wish I would have worked for another 2 days, another 2 years. The regrets people have are, I didn't travel enough. They didn't squeeze the juice out of life. So that's, squeeze the juice out of life, make the most of it while you're young, while you're able to live life and take it. And, really what was, you can't change the past. You can only change the future, but it's up to you to change your future.
Beautiful. Thank you so, so much.
Yeah.